Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for another video today. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from my normal type of content. You're going to be seeing me deep cleaning my kitchen. As you can see here, I'm showing you the before footage. And while I do that, I'm going to share a true crime story with you guys. Most of you know that I love true crime, and I've been trying to think of a way to incorporate it into my channel. So if you like this type of video, please let me know. Let me know if you have any ideas, if you would prefer that I just sort of sit and tell you the story with different pictures inserted. Let me know what you would prefer, or if you like the cleaning aspect to it. And please don't forget to subscribe if you are new here. So if you just want to sit back, relax, and enjoy the story, that sounds awesome. And if you want to clean along with me, that's great too. I do want to say that I mean no disrespect to any of the victims in this story, and all opinions are my own. So let's go ahead and get into it. I hope that you guys enjoy this video. So today we're going to be talking about the horrific murder of Rachel Nickell. I first heard about Rachel's story on a podcast probably over a year ago, and then I recently saw my favorite true crime YouTuber, Eleanors, cover her story and became interested in this case all over again. Rachel's case is one of the UK's most prolific cases because it dealt with her young 2-year-old son witnessing the crimes against his mother. So while he was not physically hurt by the attacker, he is mentioned in this story, and it is mentioned that he was present, etc. So if you can't handle that, or the topic of sexual assault or suicidal thoughts, please exit the video now, as I don't want to interfere with your mental health in any way. Okay, so Rachel Nickell was born on November 23rd, 1968 in Colchester, South England in Essex. Her father, Andrew, was an army officer, and her mother, Monica, was a stay-at-home mom. She also had a brother named Mark. From all accounts, they were a very normal family. From a very young age, it was apparent that Rachel had a big heart for helping others. It is said that she had a weak spot for the elders in her community and would often help them in any way that she could. She just sounds like she was such a sweet and innocent girl. So she was a caring, helpful, supportive young lady who also happened to be super talented in the arts. She attended the Essex Dance Theater, where she studied dancing, obviously, acting, and singing. Her instructors all adored her and spoke very highly of her skills, even encouraging her to pursue a career in the arts. In the end, though, Rachel decided to further her intellectual education and ended up studying English and history while in university, eventually graduating with a degree in both. During university, Rachel, like I feel like a lot of us do, struggled financially to make ends meet. So she decided to do a few different part-time jobs to help bring in some income. She did a little bit of modeling, but her main source of income was actually working at a local swimming pool as a lifeguard. So Rachel's working at the swimming pool, and one day in 1988, a young man named Andre Holscomb walked in to take a swim, and he was immediately taken with the beautiful lifeguard. He was a bit older than Rachel. He was 25, whereas Rachel was only 19 at this time. But nonetheless, he worked up the nerve, asked her on a date, and she, of course, accepted. So Rachel and Andre go on their first date, and they are both just smitten with each other. Rachel even went home and told her mother that Andre was the one that she was going to marry one day. She was that sure of Andre just after that first date. After that, they were together in a relationship, and this relationship moved very quickly because just 3 months after they started dating, Rachel became pregnant. She had just turned 20 years old when she found out that she was pregnant. So Rachel and Andre decided that they wanted this baby, they wanted this life together, and so they moved in together and awaited the birth of their baby. 9 months later, a perfect, beautiful baby boy whom they named Alexander Lewis was born, and Rachel seemed to transition flawlessly into motherhood. It really seemed to be her calling in life. She stayed home with Alex while Andre worked his delivery job, and anyone who knew them said that they had this unbreakable bond, that they were made for one another. Eleanor said it well in her video when she said that they were mother-son soulmates, and I think that is a perfect description for how Alex and Rachel's relationship was explained. Most of their days were spent walking through parks with their rescue dog Molly, which I just love, or spending time at home together, just enjoying each other's company. Like I said, Andre had his delivery job and he worked while Rachel took care of Alex. So, on the morning of July 15th, 1992, Rachel and Alex ate breakfast with Andre that morning, which is something they did every single morning before Andre went to work. And then they decided to take Molly out to Wimbledon Common for a walk. So Wimbledon Common was a very vast park. It had lots of walking trails, a pond. People would go there and have picnics or sunbathe throughout the day. So it was somewhere that was very well populated, and Rachel felt safe taking Alex and the dog for long walks throughout the day. So they take Molly to the park, and they planned on enjoying a nice walk on this beautiful summer's day. This was around 10 a.m. when they headed to the park, and they're walking for several minutes. They did end up going off in a trail that was a bit more secluded from the main areas. Rachel was usually very good about staying around other people. On this particular day, there just was far less people in the park, which probably was because it was a weekday and majority of people were working. So about 20 minutes into their walk, so it's about 10:20 a.m., Alex notices a man suddenly jump out of the woods and onto the trail with them. He very quickly makes his move. He picks up Alex and throws him onto the ground, and then proceeds to attack Rachel by slitting her throat from behind. They say that this cut was so deep that it almost decapitated her. The attack does not end there. It goes on for at least a few more minutes, because Rachel ends up with 49 stab wounds to her body, including several defensive wounds all over her hands and her arms. So in other words, she fought hard until the end. Ultimately, the slit to her throat is what ends her life, and after the attack, Alex says that he sees the man go over to a nearby stream, wash his hands of Rachel's blood, and then leave. Alex sits there for a few minutes before he gets up, goes over to his mom, and just says, "Wake up, mommy," like as if she were sleeping, which is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard. It's even said that he found a receipt on the floor nearby, and he put it on her forehead like a makeshift bandage, like he was trying to save her. About 10 minutes later, a man passing by notices Rachel's body, laying in the middle of the trail. At first, he thinks that this woman is just sunbathing because people did that all the time there, but ultimately realizes with, the blood all over Rachel that something was wrong. He says that Alex is still standing next to his mother's body, telling her to wake up, trying to get her to wake up. The police were immediately called, and they, of course, flooded the scene, eventually closing down the park so that no one could come in or leave. Alex was actually taken to a local hospital and placed under sedation. The police and the child psychologist had decided that this was the best thing for him versus, I guess, like sitting alone in a police car, while they're trying to find Andre and get him to Alex. So they take him to the hospital and they place him under sedation. The police end up contacting Andre. They caught him at home. He had gone home to have a snack, and they ended up calling at that time. So they catch Andre. They ask him to come down to the police station, where they inform him of what has happened to Rachel. He very quickly rushes to the hospital to be by his son's side. I do want to mention here, and I feel like it's important to mention here, that Andre went through a very dark place that day. I mean, obviously, he, on the way over to the hospital, had decided that he didn't want to live without Rachel, and he didn't think that Alex would want to live without her. Remember, they had this like unbreakable bond. So he was trying to think of ways that he could end both of their lives. Obviously, this isn't something that ended up happening, but I wanted to mention that's the space that Andre was in on that day. So Andre goes to be with Alex at the hospital, and back at Wimbledon Common, the police were trying to speak with every single person who had been in the park that day. They took down phone numbers, a description of everybody that was there, and sort of tried to do little interviews, trying to get as much information as they could. There was very little, if any, evidence left at the scene. All the police recovered was a partial boot print that they believed belonged to the killer. Because Rachel was mostly attacked from behind, the blood would have splattered forward, and so therefore not a lot of blood would have gotten on the killer, which police believe made it possible for him to get out of the park without drawing any attention to himself. In the weeks after the murder, there were 2 different women who came forward describing a man acting oddly that had been in the park that day around the same time that Rachel had been murdered. One woman said that there was a man lingering on one of the trails, sort of trying to hide his face so that she couldn't see what he looked like, but he didn't really seem to have a purpose for being there. Like, he sort of was just lingering around and acting a little odd. Then another woman stated that she had seen a man washing his hands in the stream around the same time that Rachel was murdered. So during this whole time, Andre is obviously trying to help in any way that he can. Police had tried different psychologists for Alex to see if they could draw out anything, but it wasn't working. It was hurting him more than it was working. So Andre decided to sort of make a game out of it. He would draw pictures, like a thick man or fat man, skinny man, brown hair, blonde hair, and have Alex pick which one fit the man that had hurt his mom. And Alex eventually was able to relay to his father that the man was a tall, thin, white male with brown hair. Police still, however, felt like they really weren't getting anywhere with this case. They decided to bring Alex Britton in, who is a criminal profiler, to help them create a profile for this killer. Britton came back with a very detailed profile that states that he believed the attacker was a stranger to Rachel, that she did not know him, that he was a young male under 30 who lived nearby. He was most likely single, with average intelligence and average looks, and he had probably committed some smaller sexually motivated crimes in the past. So with this profile in hand, and with the 2 women who had reported seeing a man in the park, the police decided in September of 1992 to have those women help create a sketch of the man. This sketch was plastered all over the news, including on Crime Watch, which was a really popular crime show. It kept you up to date on the local crimes in the UK and, progress that the police was making. So the sketch was shown on Crime Watch, and that same day, police were flooded with people who had an idea of who the sketch was. Over and over, the police kept getting the same name. Hey, maybe you want to look into this guy. That guy's name was Colin Stagg. Police looked into him, and Colin fit every single character trait that the criminal profiler had come up with. He lived by himself. He was unemployed. He frequented the Wimbledon Park a lot. He just ticked all the boxes. So the very next morning, with literally zero evidence against him, police went to Colin's home and arrested and charged him with the murder, making him their first official suspect and really the only suspect that they had eyes on. The pressure from the community to solve this murder and arrest somebody had definitely gotten to the police, and they made an arrest very quickly on Colin with, like I said, no evidence. They took Colin in, and during his first interview, he came forward and told police that he had been at Wimbledon Park or Wimbledon Common on the morning of Rachel's murder, and that was all police needed to hear. They didn't even care about his story or anything, but Colin goes on to say that he had walked for about 15 minutes much earlier in the morning with his dog before he left because his head was hurting. He did go home, took some medicine for his head, and then later that day went back to the park to find it closed down, obviously. And when he asked a police officer what was going on, he had told the police that he had been there that morning and that they could contact him with any questions. He gave them his details so that they could reach out to him if they needed to. Police say that Colin would sort of skirt around questions, not answering them directly, and that he seemed nervous. So they decided to try and incriminate him, and they created a covert operation called Operation Esdell. So essentially, they sent an undercover policewoman from the Metropolitan Police Special Operations Group to befriend Colin. She told him that she was a friend of a woman Colin used to contact in a Lonely Hearts column. And for 5 months, Colin and this woman communicated. She tried to get him to incriminate himself by acting interested in him romantically. She was able to draw out some violent fantasies from him after gaining his trust, but she was never able to get him to admit to anything regarding Rachel's murder. In fact, one day while they were in Hyde Park, she claimed that she enjoyed hurting people, just sort of casually mentioned it, to which he replied, and this is his direct quote, "Please forgive me," please explain as I live a quiet life. If I have disappointed you, please don't dump me. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. To which she replied, if only you had done the Wimbledon Common murder, if only you had killed her, it would be all right. And his response to that is, I'm terribly sorry, but I haven't. So Colin was charged with murder after this in a major misjustice. He obviously was eventually acquitted by a judge who called the operation a honey trap. But this was not before he spent 13 months in prison on remand. The judge threw out his case in September of 1994, and Colin was set free, and he reportedly collected £700,000 in a payout for what police had put him through. It is said that the woman involved in the operation also sued, and she collected some money as well because of the circumstances of how she was involved in the case. So the case goes cold after Colin's trial until the year 2002, when the Scotland Yard opened up a cold case investigation. The review team used refined DNA techniques and had a small team of officers that were comparing Rachel's murder to other crimes, specifically murder patterns in the same time frame surrounding Rachel's murder. Eventually, a man named Robert Napper landed on police's radar. Napper was already detained at Broadmoor High Security Hospital, which is essentially a mental hospital, for committing a 1993 double murder of a mother and her 4-year-old daughter. Which I just can't believe, because this murder obviously was after Rachel's. So Napper was charged with the crime or with Rachel's murder in 2007. And by December 18th of that same year, he pled guilty to Rachel's murder on the grounds of diminished responsibility, which essentially means he was claiming that he was not mentally well enough to assume full responsibility for the crime. Now, Robert was a diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, which I fully believe in mental illness and fully believe in its truth and what it can do. And that really scares me that he was a paranoid schizophrenic and committed not only this murder of Rachel, but also murdered a mother and her young daughter. Like, what else would he have done if he had not been caught in that double murder? But anyways, he pled guilty to Rachel's murder, and he was ordered to be detained at Broadmoor indefinitely. He is now still in Broadmoor. He is 55 years old, and he is not going anywhere. It is very unlikely that he will ever see the light of day again, which obviously gives me a lot of comfort knowing that this man can't hurt anybody else. The issue that stands out to me the most, which I touched on briefly a minute ago, was that Samantha and her daughter, Jasmine, were killed after Rachel was. So if the police had not gone on this sort of wild goose chase trying to implicate Colin and spending so much of their time and their resources on somebody that they had zero evidence on, they may have caught Napper sooner, and that may have saved Samantha and Jasmine's life. I believe, and again, this is just my opinion, but the police acted so recklessly in this case and did a major misjustice to Rachel, to Andre and Alex, to Colin, to Samantha and Jasmine. Like, the list just goes on and on. But they weren't the only ones who acted very recklessly in this case. So as for Alex and Andre, they eventually moved to the French countryside because the media was just so intrusive in their lives from the very beginning. From the very day that Rachel was murdered, they were trying to get statements from Alex, get photos of Alex. Even when he was in hospital, the hospital had to lock down because the media was trying to sneak in and take pictures of him to use in their stories. One media outlet even went as far as to publish a full color photo on the front of their paper. So a full color photo of Alex, who was a minor and who was the only major witness to a murder. This astounds me. And I don't know how they were not charged with something. Like, how did they not realize that this could put him in jeopardy? Being, this killer knew that Alex was the only person that had seen what had happened. And if he already wasn't in danger, this media outlet then just gives him a full color image reminder of what he looks like and who to go after. That just astounds me. It just disgusts me that the media would do that to Alex. So Andre eventually wrote a book about the whole ordeal, entitled it The Last Thursday in July. And it's essentially about his life with Rachel and then what happened to her and everything that happened after that. So I am already going to be ordering a copy of that because I definitely want to read his side of things, and I would recommend you do so as well. And apparently him and Andre and Alex are enjoying their life in the French countryside. The media has found them, a few times, but for the most part, they've been able to live a quieter life. So what do you think? Do you think that the police and everyone involved with the media in this case did a grave injustice to, like I mentioned, Andre, Alex, Rachel, Samantha, Jasmine? What do you think? What do you think the police could have done better to help this situation? Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, I plan to do them weekly. If you have any case suggestions, give me an idea. I will release them every Wednesday, so make sure you're subscribed. And I'm thankful that Robert is in jail and that Colin is not, and that Andre and Alex can rest peacefully now. Until next week, guys, have a fantastic day. Bye, guys.